Welcome to Sheffield, in the near north of England, a proud South Yorkshire city that, like Rome, was built on 7 hills. Once an industrial powerhouse, Sheffield was synonymous with steel production. But when Britain's industrial might was shattered in the 1980s, the steel city refashioned itself, remaking its factories and furnaces into arts, cultural and sporting venues. This is where the Full Monty was shot. The Arctic Monkeys formed their sound, and Sean Bean, the Warden of the North, Ned Stark, was born. And it's fitting that on his upper arm, Bean has a tattoo, 100% Blade. A club who've suffered, experienced grim third-tier football, until a childhood United fan turned player turned master motivational manager Chris Wilder returned to channel the passion that's never left the club and forged it into a swashbuckling tactical system that includes overlapping centre-backs. Yes, overlapping centre-backs to propel the team to glory. Sheffield United's return to the top flight might just be the most romantically local story to light up the Premier League in its entire history. How would you describe Sheffield to someone who's never been here before?
I think I can describe Sheffield and Sheffield United in the same way. The club actually is a mirror of the community.
For me, it's a welcoming city. People who come to the club always end up staying. Fans are very passionate and it's a great place to play football.
Sheffield used to be the main industrial city, I would think, in the country. With all the steel works, we've built up from there.
This city's seen its tough times and seen them frequently. We saw the closure of the steel works, the miners' strike in the 80s, of course. I always think it's a very strong city. If you cut Sheffield down the middle, one half red and white, the other half blue and white, but in the middle that heart is always going to be stainless steel.
The city's into halves, isn't it? I mean, you've Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United. The people at Sheffield Wednesday aren't very happy because we've gone up.
You're either one or the other, or nobody really cares about your opinion anyway.
It makes sense that the city, so steeped in history, possesses one of the world's oldest stadiums, home to some of football's biggest firsts.
Bramall Lane is the oldest professional ground in the world, and it would be very true to say that in its first tottering steps it was a cricket ground. The cricket team didn't want their own football team, so they rented the pitch out for other teams. So Sheffield United Football Club, we take a name from the Sheffield United Cricket Club.
First ever United in world football?
Yeah, Sheffield United FC.
It's the home of the world's first ever football tournament, the Uden Trophy. It was the home of the first floodlit game, but also, of course, it was where the Sheffield Rules were founded.
The Sheffield Rules govern the early version of the game throughout Northern England and help form the framework for today's modern laws. While the city of Sheffield had already made a major impact on English football, it wasn't long before Sheffield United did the same, winning a league title in 1897-98 and 4 FA Cups shortly thereafter. However, once the 1980s came around, the steel and coal industries collapsed across England, unemployment ran rampant, with steel jobs halved nationwide between 1971 and 1981. And as those industries were decimated, Sheffield United's success went into decline as well, with the club dropping from the top flight to the 4th division. There was a mirroring between the team decline and the city decline.
I think you're right, and I always think that we as Blades fans knew it couldn't even get any worse than that, not any chance of it. There's also a turning point where things begin to change, and I'm still very, very proud that we won Division 4 and we won it in style with a great team. So it really served to bond my generation for the next push when Dave Bassett came.
All right, boys, now, let's keep our standards. That's the standard we set at West Brom on the opening day of the season. Let's take it there today. If we get the rub of the green, we're on our way. Come on!
Despite his diminutive stature, he's a larger-than-life character, and he was everything that Yorkshiremen don't like. Brash, flash, cockney. Yet what Dave gave us was trustworthiness. All of a sudden, we were sexy, which is something that Sheffield United have never tried to be. And Dave had a wonderful, wonderful way of taking the also-rans, the waifs, the strays, and moulding them into an absolutely formidable fighting force.
Dave Bassett dragged Sheffield United into the top flight with back-to-back promotions, And in 1992, it was the feisty Bassett who guided the Blades into the inaugural Premier League season, where once again they made history. Trivia question: who was the scorer of the first ever goal in Premier League history? Brian Dean.
Brian Dean.
Carl Bradshaw with the long throw. Cork waiting on the edge of the 6-yard area, and Dean scores! 4 minutes and 36 seconds when the ball went into the net.
To be the team that scored that first Premier League goal is one of my great memories of the game.
I think the first time I realised I was the first person to have scored for the season was when I was walking off at half-time, and I think somebody came up and said, "Oh, Brian, you scored the first goal today." It's nice to be part of, you know, the football history in this country.
Well, that historic goal can never be taken away from Sheffield United. Their Premier League status lasted just 2 seasons. A 14th place finish in the inaugural campaign was followed by relegation to the 2nd Division in 1994, where the club remained for the next 12 seasons. 2006-07, back in the Premier League, last game of the season.
You know, I never genuinely thought we'd go down.
Looked, going into the last day, like they were going to cling to survival. What happened, James?
I mean, everybody obviously talks about the game against Wigan. They went into it only needing a draw. Obviously, they ended up being relegated on goal difference. You know, people will talk about the Carlos Tevez affair.
Tevez, Zamora, and Tevez scores! It was bound to be him! It was bound to be him!
It was that goal that led to a shock 1-0 West Ham win at Manchester United, a result that, coupled with Sheffield United's loss to Wigan, condemned the Blades to relegation. But the real issue was that the man who'd scored the West Ham winner at Old Trafford, Carlos Tevez, had been signed in a way which broke Premier League transfer regulations. Many in football believe Tevez should never have been allowed to play that game. West Ham were ultimately charged by the league, and while there were rumours of a potential points deduction, it never arrived. The Tevez goal, apart from making West Ham rivals forever, there's something symbolic about the pain, the injustice, just the howling wrongness.
Yeah, and I think that almost mirrors the city as well, because the city itself, I think, has been wronged by sort of people in power at times.
The Tevez affair was eventually taken all the way to the High Court. The final settlement, reached in March of 2009, ordered West Ham to pay Sheffield United $28 million in compensation. But for those mourning relegation in South Yorkshire, it was far too little, too late.
We all know what happened, we all know the outcome of the High Court judgment and the effect it had on this football club. It set this club back 10 years.
Sheffield United dropped as low as the 3rd level. I mean, how bad did it get here?
It was bad because the football wasn't great.
So in comes Chris Wilder.
Yep. In many ways, it was the perfect time for him to come in. We needed somebody who understood the identity of the club and the culture of the club.
In summer of 2016, Sheffield United were coming off their lowest league finish since the early 80s. Stranded in the 3rd tier, they sought a new leader with a new energy who could bring them back amongst England's elite. Enter Chris Wilder, a man you'd encountered in a very different scenario.
And there was a guy not a million miles away from here in Sheffield who was doing pretty remarkable things at a club called Halifax, who were in non-league at the time. And the reason why it was a great story was what was going on at Halifax at the time. The club was on its knees financially.
And despite this and not getting paid, he was leading them to great heights.
Well, this was the great thing. He took them to the conference playoff final. That was the moment when you first thought, this guy's quite special.
It was more than just a strong non-league record that drew Chris Wilder to Sheffield United. He was a born and bred Blades fan, turned player, who eventually realised the dream of representing and even captaining his boyhood club. He was a fan, a ball boy, a player. Fans really identify with him.
Yeah, I told him not to take the job. So if they come looking for you, which I think they will do, then run a mile. You don't want it on your CV. And then a few short weeks later, I'm stood in the press conference with him and I said, "You don't listen, do you?" He just laughed and said, "It's my club. I've got to take this opportunity."
The opportunity to lead this proud and historic club
one that I know very well through all sorts of different angles. Was just an opportunity that I couldn't turn down.
I'm here with Chris Wilder, the man who last season picked Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp to become League Managers Association Manager of the Year. There's two teams in this city, Chris.
No, there ain't.
Sheffield United and Sheffield United Reserves.
Just the what? Yeah, you're right. Sorry, Rog.
How did you become a boyhood Blades fan? Tell us the story.
Just family and living about 1.5 miles away from the ground, really.
That'll do it.
There's somebody in our family that supports Sheffield Wednesday, but I'm not too close to him.
The Black Sheep.
Something like that.
One thing I would always say, he is a genuine Sheffield United fan.
Was there anything about him, though, that screamed future superhero manager?
I hope anybody doesn't think that this is an accident. You know, the guy's been managing for years and years. You know, it's not always been glamorous, it's not always been Sheffield United in the top division. You know, Chris has proper done a stint. Halifax, you know, Oxford, Northamptons, and even lower than that at times. So just imagine the kind of knowledge that somebody like Chris has got.
What did you inherit here when you first walked in? Because it's a world away from where we are today.
Yeah, a disconnected club at every level. Players dislike the supporters, supporters dislike players. It wasn't in a great place. You know, 6 years in League One had taken its toll. So, from my point of view, when offered the job, I thought it was only can go one way. But saying that, we lost the first 3 out of the first 4 games, and I thought, is this the bigger problem? But there was no reason why it couldn't be turned round.
If you look at some of the players that he brought in, I think he realised that shock therapy was almost required. And I don't think it was a time for sort of slow evolution. It really needed a revolution.
We are going up, say we are going up. We are going up, say we are going up.
Does it make it even more special that it's your club?
Well, of course it is. I mean, there's no getting away from it. I know all the songs, so nobody needs to teach me any of the songs because I've sung them.
You led Sheffield United out of Division 1 and you gave an incredible speech that, to me, shows just how much you love this area.
Every 3 weeks I need my hair cutting. Every 3 weeks I park in Cole Brothers.
You name the clubs you've spent the night in, the fountains you've jumped into.
Hot Pants I used to go in every Saturday night, every 2 weeks, best night ever. I've dived into the old fountain at the top of Fargate, walked past Josephine's, how many times that I've been in there, how many times I've been refused entry.
I watched it, I was like, that is up there with Churchill.
Walked past the City Hall and looked up and thought, what might happen? What's it going to be like in May if we produce and the scenes that we've had? I'm just part of the fabric of the city, really. As you know, momentum's a great thing. We've got it moving forward. To get out that division in the first time of asking the way we did, and second season, first time in the Championship for a long time, everybody telling us what a wonderful league this was and how tough it would be and how we would struggle and the way we attacked that division. And then obviously the third year, everybody said, well, you've had a little bit of a day in the sun. You shouldn't be there. And, well, we proved that we should.
He's not averse to getting the beers in the name of team collectivity.
Yeah, there's a story of when we went away to Millwall and we conceded in the last minute, lost, and he pulled me down to the front of the bus and I was like, oh no, here we go. And he said, here you go, here's some money, go and get the beers in for the boys, and told us to stop feeling sorry for ourselves.
There's times where they need to express themselves off the pitch, as they say, to go and enjoy themselves and let themselves down, and no issue in that, as long as it's done in the right way, in a respectable way, which, to be fair, it is.
Please welcome the gaffer, Chris Wilder!
I think the difference this year is that Chris Wilder is from Sheffield, ex-teammate of mine, and he actually knows what is expected.
Which is what, Brad?
I think everything you do in Yorkshire, it has to be underpinned with sweat, blood and tears.
Without a big transfer budget to work with, Wilder's had to find other ways to inject intensity into his squad.
There's not a huge number of household names in this squad, but there's an awful lot of brains that go into what they do here at Sheffield United. There's a system, of course, that's quite bizarre on paper, overlapping centre-halves and forward-thinking wing-backs, and you think this should be a recipe for chaos.
They have a way of playing that can be very tough to get to grips with. I've not seen or played against anything like this. We'll see the wing-back come inside, and we'll see the left centre-back, O'Connell, flying down here, Rob, like a left winger.
We let the players express themselves and play with the freedom, especially at the top of the pitch, and we've played a risk and reward game.
Freeman taking it on inside the penalty area. It's Lundstrom and it's 1-0 to Sheffield United. A goal that means so much to so many in the Steel City.
What you have here is you have total control of the ball. The way how the players move, the way how they find spaces is very important to the system.
I'm not saying that it'll work 100% in the Premier League. We might have to alter, we might have to tinker and change a few bits, but I think it'd be really naive and foolish for me and the coaching staff to take a wrecking ball to the way they've played and the attitude of the team over the last 3 years.
When these fans sing, you're a guy that grew up singing for your heroes. How do you not just start tearing up every time you hear it?
It does give me an enormous sense of pride and definitely a buzz, but I think they recognise that I'm representing them as well as vice versa.
Been a lot of very dark days. Through them all, though, you've sung one song in particular.
You fill up my senses like a barrel of maggots, like a packet of woodbines, like a good pinch of snuff, like an out-outing Sheffield, like a greasy chip butty, like Sheffield United. Come fill me again. Na, 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 na. Ooh. It's a night out in Sheffield, that.
The spearhead of Sheffield United's return to the Premier League has been academy product turned club legend, Billy Sharp. Now in his third stint with United, his importance was immediately recognised by a fellow Sheffield native. One of your first acts as manager was to make him captain. Was that as a way of cementing passion at the core of the squad? Two boyhood fans, 100% Blade.
Well, it certainly didn't help, but I looked at the previous season. It was quite interesting. He was at a Player of the Year awards and he'd scooped everything up and he was devastated. He's not bothered about himself being leading goal scorer, being Player of the Year. He wants the club to go forward, so that was quite a quick decision and quite an easy one.
Billy Sharp, there's a saying in this city, there's three certainties in life: death, taxes and Billy Sharp scoring goals. What is your secret? Because you do it at every level.
I just love doing it. It's something I've had the knack of doing, and it's hard to explain, but I just try and get as close to the goal as possible, and not going to lie, I rely on my quality teammates to provide the ammunition for me to put them in the net.
The local paper likes to joke you've had more clubs than Jack Nicklaus. This is your third spell with Sheffield United. The other two didn't end up as well as this one, but this one, it's almost been like a fairy tale.
I don't regret any of it. I was learning my trade back then, and I feel as I'm a better player now, more experience, and obviously this spell has gone a lot better than a lot of spells.
So you're also incredibly tenacious, and you've got an incredible sense of humour. Just another fat lad from Sheffield.
Yeah, that's a myth now as well. I was a fat lad from Sheffield when I went to Southampton. I wasn't in great condition, but now I'm in fighting fit and I'm ready to go.
Norwood short, nicely worked out. Bulldogs ball in, and McBurney, and it's in from Sharp. It's Sheffield United's living legend.
One man who knows all about the challenges of the Premier League is Phil Jagielka, who after spending 12 years at Everton has returned to the club he first joined age 15. You've had a fantastic Premier League career. Does this season feel different to all those past? Because from the outside, there's a hint of nostalgia about your return, a romance.
Well, yeah, that was the attraction as well. There wasn't any other club that I could have gone to get the feeling that I get here. It's up to me now to try and get in the team, and if not, play a role behind the scenes to make sure we're successful.
You understand the Premier League better than anyone in that Sheffield United changing room. How do you handicap all that is to come? What chance do you give Sheffield United?
It's going to be tough. Still the hardest division in the world. But we've got something that a lot of teams haven't got, is the team's been together and they understand the ups and downs, the promotions. Some of the lads have been rejected at other clubs and all sorts. So there's almost like a togetherness of, well, we can prove people wrong. All I'd say, that the Premier League's about momentum. If you can get a little bit of momentum at any stage, you will be fine.
Are you aware, Chris, that from the outside, and for a lot of Sheffield United fans, it feels like you are living a fairy tale?
I mean, when you get the fixtures out, is it a fairy tale, or you're looking at those fixtures and going, oh dear me, over the Christmas period we've got Liverpool and Man City away. But as I said, the door opened for us. There was a desire and drive to be in the Premier League. So when it happens, you've got to embrace all that.
Whatever happens this year, they're in the Premier League. You know, Pep Guardiola's going to be in the opposite dugout. It's about seeing some of those characters and the fans realising it's not a dream. This is reality.
You've got to accept that, you know, you're up against elite world-class teams that are very, very powerful, and at this stage they're going to be better than you, but we're in the fight.
Stevens, Robinson! Sheffield United back in it!
They're back in the game. Obviously the team's all done the trick.
I think it's a fairy tale for other people, for the simple reason it's about how they've done it. They've not done it with a huge chequebook. They've done it with a manager who's a fan of the football club. They've done it with a captain who's a fan of the football club. So I think there should be an awful lot of footballing romantics out there who, if they haven't already started to take notice of Sheffield United, should get behind them for those reasons.
Robinson, it's done well to deliver, and it's been swept in, and Sheffield United from 2-0 down have pulled it back to 2-2. It's a deserved point for the Blades at Stamford Bridge.
We're going to enjoy it. We don't want to be the whipping boys, and we feel that we've got a chance of being very, very competitive in this division, and that's what I'm looking us to be.
Chris is going to have to grow as well, but I believe that he's got all the right ingredients to actually make sure that they give everybody a good game.
The pinch yourself, wake you up dream is basically, at the end of the season, we're clapping the fans at Bramall Lane and the sun shines out and everyone's ridiculously happy because we've stayed in the best league in the world.
The sun, you're pushing it.
I know, yeah. Everything else will be fine. So it'll be raining, I'll take rain, I'll take snow if that means that we stay up. But well, that's the dream, and hopefully, like you say, it's got a nice little fairy tale ending.